inner truth, and then you'll get somewhere, in my opinion.
Well, I get pretty confused in there.
It's a very confusing topic.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do to shed some clarity today. And
Thank you. That's what I'm after.
Yeah.
Renee,
Yes.
I think let's start. It's 7 o'clock. And I suggest to those who logged in to hold your questions until Renee finishes her presentation, and then there's plenty time for Q&A, as they call it. So that's what I suggest. Everybody is familiar with Renee. We wrote a little bio in the invitational email, and I'm sure that Renee will tell you a little bit about herself before the lecture. Thank you for joining, Renee.
Thank you, Nene.
Yes,
Hey.
there you go.
Thank you both. Lovely to see you, and welcome, Harriet, Sheila, Susan, and everybody who will be watching this at another day and time. For those of you that are here, I genuinely thank you. And I think there's more names that I can see. Pat, Anne, I'm also so glad you're here. As I'm speaking, you know, I do like and enjoy engagement. So if there's a question that you have that's burning and urgent, I'm going to actually encourage you to put it in the chat. And then Stefan can help me keep track of that. And we can certainly get to them all at the end. And if something comes up during the talk that I feel like, ooh, let's dive into that, let's go ahead and do that. You know, I'm here at this time with you in a talk called Listening Beyond Pain. And I'm going to tell the truth, this is not an easy conversation. Honestly, truth be told, I've been a physical therapist and doing this work for over 20 years. In the last few years, I've become officially a psychotherapist because I discovered doing physical therapy, the more I did it, the more I ended up becoming like a relationship therapist between mind and body, because the body was taking the brunt of the sometimes fight that can happen between our mind and body. And as I am aware of my own mind and body talking about pain, if I'm telling the truth, I'd rather not, because neurobiologically, we are wired to move away from pain, not towards it. And the reason that we're here likely is because you're crazy like me and made a commitment to a calling in your life. My work as a physical therapist, as a healer, is to be of service. And my profession includes listening to and talking and interacting with pain, even though it's uncomfortable. I think it's sometimes very scary. I'd rather avoid it, ignore it, move away from it. Sometimes it really frustrates me and makes me angry. And yet I'm choosing to be here because I think it's important, because there's certain gifts in and beyond pain. And if we learn how to listen to that inner wisdom and knowing that's sometimes very difficult to find and sometimes almost impossible to find on our own, and we need another. But when we can do that, it can yield these places and spaces that are moving and open up windows of healing on a very deep and profound level: body, mind, heart, soul, relationally, socially, individually, and collectively. And so I'm willing to overcome the fear and the frustration that comes along with pain, because I'm committed to this conversation and I'm committed to you. There can be a lot of confusion around studying and investigating and researching and working with tens of thousands of people. I've learned that if I listen to my own inner knowing and help you find yours, together we can figure out your problem. At the very least, we can make you have a greater sense of understanding or control over it, and suffer less as a result, and enjoy more of a quality of life that's meaningful to you. I find a tremendous amount of hope and promise in the words of Helen Keller, because it's true. The world is absolutely filled with suffering, and we know that right now more than any time, at least certainly in my lifetime, collectively. We are all suffering. And what is also true is that we are capable of overcoming this suffering. And it's my job, my duty, my calling here today to share with you what I know and what I've learned. And it might land with you completely, or you might not like any of it, or you'll fall somewhere in between. And I encourage you to take what works for you and leave the rest. And hopefully on some level, everything I say activates something within your deep sense of knowing that you already know, and you just needed a little permission or encouragement, courage to listen. I've been thinking recently about a question that my niece asked. She's 23 years old and in nursing school. And I was in a struggle, a serious, serious emotional pain that I've carried for 32 years since my mother died at the age of 47 and I was 11. And that had a profound impact on me, as you can hear in my voice. And my father recently passed away, and I was struggling, and my niece was there. I was telling her the hardest part about my father's recent passing wasn't his death, but it was actually all the old trauma from my mother's sudden and unexpected passing when she was 47 of a brain aneurysm. And I was crying and sobbing and flooded and just not okay, a wet sobbing mess that I usually don't let a lot of people see, but for whatever reason on that day, it just took over. And my beloved niece, Susan, said, "What got you through?" That was really hard and it sucked. And she asked me, "What got you through?" And it stopped me dead in my emotionally flooded PTSD track. And I stopped and I was just almost shocked. And I didn't realize that I had gotten through. It was like my nervous system took over and I was reliving the pain of the past in my present. And when she said, "What got you through?" my nervous system realized, wow, I survived that. Parts of my nervous system were still stuck in a past memory that had flooded me and taken me out because of a present day circumstance. And I've been thinking about that question for a couple months. What is it that got me through? And I'm very clear that it's not just one thing that got me through. It's many things. And I've been posing this question to other people, lots of other people. And I'm going to pose this question to you right now. And I'm going to ask it in a two-part question. So bring your curiosity to yourself and think back on your life to something that you overcame. Think back to something that you survived, you triumphed, you championed. Maybe it was messy. Maybe it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. Maybe it was the worst thing that you didn't want to have happen, but you made it through. So I want you to think about what that is for a moment. And then I invite you to consider, what is it that got you through that? And you don't need to answer right now, but I would like to have a discussion about it at the end. And I'd like to share with you some of what other people have said. Right? Because sometimes we need to be our own superhero on this long, crazy, winding journey that doesn't necessarily have a clear end when we're at the beginning of these things that seem confusing and difficult and scary and hard. But there are ways through, and I've seen it 20 years in. I've lived it myself. Some people said their friends got them through, and I can certainly relate to that. My best friend from childhood, who has seen me through the death of both my parents and all of our life strains and pains together. I met her the first day of nursery school. She is still in my life, a huge social support, which is very, very helpful when we're flooded by pain. a belief in ourself. Somewhere inside of me, there is something that's capable of doing hard things, and having a belief in that. That's what other people said. One interesting person said guilt. I stuck it out and I stayed in that situation because I would have felt too guilty had I left. And I thought that was awesome. I loved that guy's truth telling, because not all of our motivations are pure, Gandhi, lovely, peaceful. Some of them are crappy and hard and suck, and that is A-okay. I loved that answer. The therapist, in my case, many, for 12 years, exercise and movement, a great way to help us get through hard things that we may not think we can get through. An inner process. This was an interesting one. One of my friends who's an ICU nurse, she said, I was always looking outside of me for the answers, for the drugs, for the people, for the boyfriend. And she finally realized through the help of her therapist that her lack of happiness, because of her struggles with migraine headaches and relationship troubles and all of that, from a concussion, neck pain, she said it was an inner process for me. And that's a big part of what got her through. Many people said God, faith, or spirituality, something beyond us, right? Because when we're trapped in a vortex in a cycle of pain, we're blinded and we cannot see anything else. And we need something outside of us that's bigger than us. That being said, I have another physical therapist friend who is also a spiritual director. And in her training, she said the word God is so loaded that most people probably shouldn't even consider using it until they're at least 70 or 80. So that's a little phrase I've been mulling over for a number of years now. And then the last one was step by step. Somebody was saying, I did not think I would get to the top of Manitou Springs because that journey was so hard and I was really struggling with a knee pain issue. And yet I was committed to doing it. And so he said 20 steps at a time, then I'll take a break. And at the break, he would look back at what he just did and acknowledge himself. And he said, if I can do that, I can do it again. Inch by inch, it's a cinch. I don't know if that's even true. Sometimes it needs to be millimeter by millimeter. But really, this conversation of pain in many ways is so difficult and hard. And it's confusing. I was talking at the start of this about how much information there is that's conflicting, you know? And if I'm, again, really telling the truth, I still don't really know what pain is a lot of the time. Sometimes I'm crystal clear. Other times it's confusing, because it's very individualized and different for everybody. And we hear so many different things and we're told many different things. Like your pain is from your bulging discs. And what I find confusing about that is that there's evidence in literature that shows 80, 40, depends what percent you look at. So there's research that shows, let's say 100 people that don't have lower back pain. They do an MRI, an X-ray, and they find bulging discs in these people that don't have any back pain. So 40 to 80% of people that don't have back pain have bulging discs. So that's confusing. And yet I've also treated hundreds of people with an approach to treat a bulging disc and they get better. What is that about? It's confusing.
Okay, sit.
Yes. Diagnosis. There is a whole bunch of these out there, and some of them are really accurate and helpful. And some of them become long-term identities. And then I think it becomes less helpful. A diagnosis, in my opinion, its underlying positive intention is to help us identify a challenge or a problem with language and point us in a direction to help find resolution and healing, or at least improved management of our situation. And yet, they become permanent fixtures in people's lives. And that's where I struggle, because I don't always think that that needs to be the case. And so pain can become wrapped up in a diagnosis and an identity. And that's very, very difficult to wrap your head around and through. Aging gets a lot of blame for pain. And yet there's 90-year-olds that can teach black belt karate classes. And so again, there's evidence that just because you're aging doesn't mean you have to hurt. And yet so many doctors will tell you, oh, it's just age. Probably, again, this is my opinion, because it's too complicated. There's more there than they know what to do with. And I'm not intending to disrespect anybody. But pain is a problem, and it's really easy to just pin it on aging. And yet your 70-year-old right knee is the same age as your 70-year-old left knee. Why is only the right one hurting? Again, there's evidence like, pain isn't just this one thing. And so we're trying to put these labels on what it is. Like, oh, it's my hormones. Sure, absolutely. They contribute. Are they the whole picture? Absolutely not. They're a part of the picture. A disease process, you know, that may or may not come with pain. There's people that have stage 4 cancer and don't even know about it. What the heck is that about? Confusing. Stress gets a lot of rap for causing pain, and it does. It absolutely does. Just yesterday, I worked with a woman who has had chronic back pain for close to 20 years. And you know what's gotten her better? She said, in September, I started meditating. September, October, November, I meditated for 10 minutes at the end of my workday, over 50% of my days. And December, I have meditated so far 10 minutes a day at the end of my workday for 100% of December. And she said, you know what? I've gone from 20 years of daily chronic low-grade back pain. I finally got sick of it enough to start meditating. And she says, now there's days where I don't have pain at all. And that's huge. Could you imagine? Now, she was clear that stress was a big part of her pain because she's gone through the rigmarole of every other test that said, nope, it's not this, not this, not this. You're fine. And yet she still had pain every day. So she had to figure out for herself that stress was a big part of her pain. And then she found the right solution for her. I'm not saying that 10 minutes of meditating is the right thing for you, but somewhere in you is a sense of knowing that can lead you and guide you instinctually and intuitively to people that can illuminate a step or a path for you. Pain is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as physical suffering or discomfort caused by illness or injury. So of course, we're going to think that pain is all about the physical suffering and discomfort. And I, in my, again, personal opinion, which you're going to hear a lot of today, based on 20 years of evidence study and research, it's not that simple. The International Association for the Study of Pain defines pain as this unpleasant sensory and emotional experience that is associated with or resembling that associated with actual or potential tissue damage. Wow, what does that even mean? Now we're getting somewhere as far as the complexity of this. We can all agree that it's unpleasant. We can all agree that it's sensory, right? We feel it through our senses, and we can agree that it affects our emotional experience. And we can probably agree that it is associated with actual tissue damage. Sure, you break a leg, it's going to hurt. But what if you're in a war and you have your leg broken or arm amputated and don't feel pain at all? That happens. What's that about? There's definitely tissue damage there. And yet they don't experience pain because there's more going on in the brain and its perception of consciousness and threat in that given moment. And then there is my father, when he was 15, he had the half of one of his fingers amputated accidentally as an auto mechanic. And for years, he had pain in a finger that was no longer there. Potential tissue damage or past tissue damage. And so he continued to have pain in tissues that didn't exist. Again, it's more complicated and confusing. And then resembling that associated with, what does that even mean? Resembling that associated with. I remember it was maybe like 4 years ago, I was prepping for a talk on pain and I started getting this ache in my back and it made me get up and move and do some Mackenzie press-up exercises. Because talking about pain resembles an association with it so much so that it caused me to experience physical pain in that moment. So it's more nuanced than just tissue damage. Based on my experience over the last 20 years, 20 plus years, and research, pain is a construct of consciousness. And it is based upon the perception of threat. And there's some things that I want to say about that. First of all, a construct of consciousness. Science doesn't understand what consciousness is. And if pain is a construct of consciousness, that means we can't understand what pain is. And that can be incredibly disheartening to hear. And yet I also find it to be permission giving. Because if the top world renowned scientists don't know what pain is, it's certainly okay if I don't. Lorimer Moseley has published over 180 peer-reviewed scientific articles. He's a pain specialist, physical therapist out of Australia. And in one of his books, he says, I don't know how the brain works. Again, so permission giving. We don't have to understand it to be able to make it better. And that's where I find so much promise and hope that we can make this better. And it really is about the perception of threat. Because I studied in Australia with David Butler and Lorimer Moseley and those experts. And I learned that pain is this perception that your brain comes to a conclusion of. Your nervous system decides, not necessarily with your permission, conscious choice, or control. But if your brain decides there's a threat for you and or your body tissues, it will create an experience of pain for you. And so in my mind, in a way, it's simple. If we can help your nervous system experience safety, your pain will go away. I don't think it's easy. I've spent over 12 years trying to figure out and learn how to do that. And I will say over 12 years, it's getting better and better and better. I used to have all kinds of back pain going down both my legs. I've had cauda equina symptoms, which is a very scary surgical situation that I didn't need surgery for. You can ask Stefan one day, he checked my strength in my leg and it wasn't there. Because my nerves had gotten so compressed or pinched from a mechanical standpoint. I don't know if that's actually what was going on at the time, but there's a whole lot of threat being perceived by my nervous system. In that moment, based on that moment, and based on all of past moments of experience and environment that my nervous system had been exposed to. Which leads me to the other point that I wanted to bring up, that pain is three-dimensional. And we'll talk more about this later. But what I find utterly fascinating is that if a brain in pain is put under an fMRI, the circuits for physical pain are nearly identical to the circuits of emotional pain, to the circuits of social pain. To the extent that there's research that shows if you give a Tylenol to someone that is experiencing social pain, right? Isolation or loneliness. If you give them a Tylenol, they feel better, right? So if we can change the circuits of our brain and nervous system from threat to safety, and it's a two-way street, brain to body, body to brain, we have to address, in my opinion, it's best to address traffic in both directions, because a jam one way can cause backup the other direction and vice versa. But if we can help ourselves organize our nervous system to greater and greater states of perceiving safety instead of threat, pain gets better across the board, physically, emotionally, and socially. I wish, parts of me wish with all of their being that I could give you a quick pill and a magic fix and say, here you go, you're done. In my experience, this is a lifelong conversation. And if you're courageous enough to be here for it, the payoff is well worth the reward. You can ask that woman just yesterday, who's been working with me for a year and just has figured out her back pain and her nervous system and is now helping her kids learn how to regulate their own nervous system. She said to me yesterday, this really makes a difference for the quality of my kids' lives. I don't think there's a greater gift than to be able to say that I am living in a nervous system that is regulated and regulating. And that's my commitment to this world, is to live in a nervous system, to be a nervous system, because we are both the beast and its rider. We're both. That is regulated and regulating in the world. So those are the thoughts that I, as a clinician, have to share about pain. But then there's pain like you, and by you, I also mean me, the human. Like pain just fucking sucks. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cuss. But it does, right? And that brings out the frustration about pain. It sucks and it's hard and there's no clear answers. And we can make it better, even if we don't fully understand it. It can oftentimes feel like this beast, this scary, scary thing, right? Look at those intense red eyes, this beast, this scary beast. And this guy's ready for battle. Look at those shoulders back and defensive, but I would imagine his eyes are looking straight in. And that is what I see all of you here today, willing to face this construct of consciousness that is scary, and yet you are rising up to the challenge. Literally at 7 in the morning, you are rising up to this challenge to be here today so that we can learn how to interface with this beast. I often say that we are both the beast and its rider. And sometimes I think about my nervous system as a beast. It's wild, it's untamed, it makes choices that I don't like or want, and I don't agree with, like getting back pain while preparing for a pain talk. Or the other day I was on a plane and the flight attendant asked me, do you want couscous or a hamburger? Couscous with vegetables. My body inside was like, oh yes, I want the couscous with vegetables. That sounds amazing. And then I listened to my mouth say hamburger. And I was like, what the heck, nervous system? Why did you just say that? Because my pre-existing conditioning was, oh, you need the protein because it's going to be a while before you can eat. And so my nervous system made the answer that I wanted a hamburger, when really my body was yearning and longing for the vegetables and couscous, right? And so, I don't know, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because we are both the beast and its rider. The nervous system sometimes makes choices without our consent or control, and we can't change it in the moment. But when we look back and reflect and understand why that happened a little more, we can plant a seed for the next time, the future, and say, okay, next time, nervous system, let's do this a little differently. And you do that by having a relationship with your nervous system. We can talk a little bit more about that here shortly, but having a relationship with your nervous system with the beast, right? We are both beast and rider. How does one have a relationship with their nervous system? It starts with awareness and an understanding of how it works. You know, you are however old. I'm 43 years old. You're 60 years old, 20 years old, 70 years old, plus 50 million years. That's how old we all are, because the wiring of this nervous system and the body that we're in is magical and magnificent, and in so many ways is working really well. And sometimes the wiring in the nervous system gets a little caught and tweaked, or a lot caught and tweaked, because of past learning experiences. Right? When my mom died, that was a very traumatic experience, and it set my nervous system up to live in fight, flight, and freeze predominantly for a good 25, 30 years, as I've been untangling and unraveling and working with my beast to reorganize it from greater states of threat into safety. So take a moment to just notice that we're here in this time and space together. Notice that you have a body, notice that it has breath. And notice that somewhere in it is a nervous system. And notice that I have one too. And I invite you now to consider that you can think about reaching out and connecting with my nervous system as it reaches out to you, to offer a sense of support or hope or promise or information. Just consider for a moment that my nervous system and your nervous system are in a process of co-regulation together. As we're in this conversation around pain, my nervous system has a great ability to feel safe in what can be a very threatening conversation. I just want you to see if you can connect to that. Maybe even notice if that affects your mind or body in any way, shape, or form. If it does, that's amazing. And if it doesn't, that's absolutely great too. That's the process of beginning to develop your own relationship with your nervous system, is becoming aware that you have one. When I think of my own nervous system as a beast, sometimes it feels like a dragon with anger, rage, and fury and fire. And other times it's like a calm, sleeping animal that's just, you know, hanging out, chilling. And other times it's like Pete's dragon, and it's friendly and flies around and it's really playful. And so I'm actively in a process of developing a friendliness with all states of my nervous system, or my dragon, or my stallion, or my bear. I work on a lot of different animals with people as they think about what beast do they have. Is yours a tiger like this? Is it a stallion that's wild and untamed and wreaking havoc in the world? Because we can learn how to tame it, not to a docile state, but one that's friendly with you, that you can learn how to interact with and respect and utilize the gifts that it has. It's all very possible. And it sounds super airy-fairy, woo-woo, not sciencey. And what I will say to you is that it's 100% based on the science and evidence as I know it. And I've seen, just like Robin McKenzie, as I said at the start of this conversation, sometimes the evidence is in the person in front of you. And just 3 weeks ago, I had a woman have all kinds of digestive issues and dizziness, neck pain, back pain. Been working with her on and off for about 10 years. So she's really well versed in how I work with people. But as she befriended the wild stallion of her nervous system and became less afraid of it, her digestive issues resolved by 80%. So that's some clinical evidence that I share with you that yields so much promise and hope in these difficult times. 20 plus years, what I've seen in myself and in others is that there's 3 predominant patterns of reaction to the context, topic, conversation, or experience of pain. And all these patterns are normal. They're not a character flaw. They're not something wrong with you. If I tap your knee tendon, you can expect to kick. If we experience pain, you can expect one of these 3 patterns of response, because that's our normal biology and how we're wired. The first thing that I've seen, again, in myself and others, in the context and topic and conversation of pain, we love to ignore and avoid it at all costs as much as possible. I do this every day. Okay, it's not bad. It's not a character flaw. It's just a pattern of how we respond normally to pain. And each of these patterns has an effect on the body, right? When I ignore and avoid, I tend to move away. Okay, so that is the body pattern associated with that. The second thing that I've seen, again, in self and others, is we get angry and or frustrated. Frustration is actually an unmet need that's not, it's about a need that isn't getting met despite your greatest efforts and actions and energy. You're trying to solve this problem. You're trying to get this need met and it's not getting met. Of course, it's going to piss you off. That's what pain does. It pisses us off. Again, normal, healthy, natural, part of our DNA as humans. And yet it can create problems for us because when we're angry and frustrated, we're in threat circuitry. So now it's like adding fuel to the pain fire. And it doesn't allow us to access the clarity that can come with safe circuitry. Anger and frustration also affect us physically. It affects our gut motility. It affects the tension in our muscles. It affects our breath pattern. All of these contribute to more and more experiences of running painful neural circuitry, not less. And so these natural patterns of reaction to pain can actually keep us stuck in it, unbeknownst to ourselves, which is why I want to bring these patterns up, because they're normal, they're natural, and they can keep us stuck. And the third one, and for me, certainly the hardest to admit and own, is that it is scary. Oh my gosh, it's way easier for me to go into anger than to actually feel the fear of this pain and what it might mean. When I sit with people and we get into this kind of conversation, you know, the things that's scary about pain is, what are we going to do if it doesn't go away, right? The quality of my life is going to be restricted and limited and all of this. And again, that affects our physical body. So becoming aware of these patterns of reaction, and they're not bad or wrong, but none of them help us get out of the circuits of threat. And for years, I felt alone and like a scared little kid trying to figure out this problem all by myself. A journey with no end and no clear anything about it. And then one day I saw this. The thing about the human brain is that it is extremely evolved for connection and relationship, and we were never supposed to be alone with pain and stress, needing emotional safety. And I would say needing safety at all, not just emotional, physical, relational. Needing safety and support is not something wrong with you. It's the sign of something deeply right with you. And so I've really changed my approach to and with pain over the years. And instead of trying to conquer it alone, I've really become much more interested in connecting with somebody and looking out into the abyss together and seeing what we can do to figure it out as we co-regulate our nervous systems. So today I'm going to share 4 practices that I have found very helpful in accessing more of that deep listening beyond those 3 patterned responses to pain. Deep listening to the wisdom of the body. And the first one is awareness, that we've already touched on a little bit, of the autonomic nervous system and the 3 dimensions of pain: physical, emotional, social. And then I have 3 practices: slow blinking, vroom breathing, and clearing the cache. So we'll start now with awareness around the autonomic nervous system and the 3 dimensions of pain. As I said, social, mechanical, and psychological, right? Science tells us that pain is a 3-dimensional experience. It's physical or mechanical, right? Sometimes bulging discs are generating problems in the pain in the body that lead to circuits of threat that yield pain. And this naturally has a psychological effect. We will feel scared, afraid, frustrated, angry. That's normal and natural. And this also socially, right? Social isolation and pain. When another is hurting, we will hurt too, whether we're aware of it or not. Our nervous system will pick that up, mirror neurons, right? And right now, a pandemic, all this racial injustice, all of these things affect a body and promote our circuits of threat. I will actively tell many, many clients, patients, stop watching the news so much. And they feel better physically because the social world around us affects our physical body. And the balance of stress, the balance of safety versus threat really matters. And so I have people track their experiences of pain. For example, a gentleman that I worked with that had neck pain and bulging discs, and we did a bunch of McKenzie exercises, and he got 60% better and was in progress. And then he went away on vacation. And I had told him, you know, let's track your pain when it's at its best and when it's at its worst across the 3 dimensions. Physically, how's your neck posture? Emotionally, psychologically, what are you feeling? And socially, what's happening around you when the pain is really great and it's not there? And when the pain is bad and it's there? So he noticed when he was on vacation that his pain was gone. He was doing work that mattered to him. He was around people that were validating him. He was seeing friends he hadn't seen for 20 years. He didn't really pay too much attention to his posture, and his pain was gone. And then he said, Renee, I would have never picked up on this had you not told me to look for it. The minute I walked through the threshold back to my failing marriage, my neck pain came back. So for him, it was a combination of mechanical and social and emotional. And that's how it is for all of us. I'm not saying all neck pain is coming from bad relationships. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the world around us and within us all affects the body and can contribute to circuits of safety or threat. And so just practicing in awareness and maybe even keeping a journal of your discomfort and or pain. When it's really good, what's happening in these 3 domains? And when it's really not good, what's happening in those 3 domains? And remain a curious scientist and track your own data so that you can get more information about triggers and alleviators. What makes the pain go up? What makes the pain go down? Simply stated, do less of what makes the pain go up and more of what makes the pain go down. Simple, not easy. But you don't have to do it alone. We're here to help. Now, the nervous system, specifically the autonomic nervous system. I'm going to give you a map here to help you become aware of the nervous system. These 3 colors represent the 3 main circuits of our nervous system that respond to threat. On the left side here, you can see as arousal increases, the arrow goes up. When all is good in the world and we're balanced between gas and brake, we have this nice black wavy line of regulated green and red. And our autonomic nervous system is running circuits from the ventral vagus nerve, right? The front part of the vagus nerve. And when this nerve is active in your nervous system, it gives you access to the brain regions that run your capacity for social engagement, where you're connecting with self, other, and the world at large. You're experiencing safety and you're oriented to the present environment. Like my niece, when she asked that question, what got you through? That reoriented me back to the present moment instead of getting flooded by my past. And when these brain regions are active, it gives us access to experience joy, being present and grounded. We're curious, open, compassionate, mindful. Imagine how this feels in the body. When these circuits are on, your body is comfortable and pain does not live here. And you can see here on the right, we have great digestion and circulation. Our immune system's working really well. And we have oxytocin running that we can connect and experience a mobility without fear. So we can just be at peace, resting. The ability to relate and connect. And we don't have a lot of defensive responses when this ventral vagus nerve is active. And yet, who lives here? Nobody, unless you're a monk on a mountaintop, meditating all the time, right? You're going to have arousal happening, and that's normal, right? So a threat happens, a noise, for example, a big loud boom, whoosh, without conscious consent or control, the sympathetic arousal will kick in and you will experience movement towards or away in the form of fight or flight. Sympathetic arousal gives us access to the brain regions of panic, fear, worry,
Wow, look at
anxiety,
that.
rage, anger, irritation, frustration. These are normal, natural body responses that happen without our conscious consent or control, and they are not a character flaw. And when the sympathetic nervous system is running, you can expect to have higher blood pressure, heart rate, adrenaline, big pupils, so you can take in the world, right? And less ability to modulate your immune system and digest your food. You'll have dry mouth and less relational abilities here. Dry eyes. I'm going to drink a water because my sympathetic circuits are active. It's not always a bad thing. It's also the channel for enthusiasm and excitement. But if the noise goes away, I go and look, nothing's there. My system will settle back down into this nice balanced way. But if that noise persists, say I've got a nasty neighbor and they keep banging and banging and banging away, I might eventually follow this black wave path up into the dorsal vagus, right? The more back reptilian primitive part of the brain. And it's responsible for shutdown, body collapse, immobility, freeze. It gives me access to the brain regions that create an experience of dissociation or numbness, depression, conservation of energy, right? Like I have no motivation to do anything, a lot of helplessness, shame, shutdown, hopelessness. The system is literally preparing for death and I feel trapped. And the key words here is I can't. And there's overwhelm. A lot of autoimmune diseases live here. A lot of gut-brain access disorders, migraine, headaches, IBS. And you can see here the effects. And if any of you want this handout, I'm happy to share it to you. If you just email me and I'll have Stefan put my email in the chat. And I'd be happy to get this over to you. What normally happens when all is well and let's say I go and talk to the neighbor or their noise ends, my system can deactivate and I can get back down into this balanced, regulated circuitry, right? So you hear this deactivation. But if the threat remains, right, that pain remains, your diagnosis remains, the challenging relationship or work situation remains, the threat remains, and our circuits stay elevated in these places. And many, many, many of us right now are looping and looping in this red-blue 5-lane superhighway with no off-ramp or exit to get back down to green. It's a sucky, shitty, way to live because it's not living. It's surviving, it's not thriving. And I'm here to tell you today through my own personal experience of all kinds of physical, emotional, and social pain for 30 years from childhood trauma, we can learn how to regulate this again. None of this is permanent. Thank goodness for neuroplasticity. So that's the map, right? And there is this concept of the territory. Okay, so this is a world map, just like you saw the autonomic map. But if I were to get placed down here in the middle of this forest, I don't know if I'm in Asia or Africa or the USA. So just because I can understand the map cognitively doesn't mean I know how to live the territory. So we're going to do a little exercise now to help you start becoming more familiar with your own nervous system, right? How do I develop a relationship with my nervous system? We are both beast and rider. How do I familiarize myself with the beast? I'm going to invite you all to pay attention to your body for a moment. We're doing a little somatic awareness territory navigation. Become aware of your breath, become aware of your body. Doesn't matter what they're doing. It's not right or wrong, it's good or bad. You're curious scientists, and we're just going to pay attention. And I want you to notice what happens when you see this image in your body. Notice these faces of kind, smiling warmth. Notice the crinkly, happy eyes, the smiles, the proximity, and see if you can imagine the closeness of getting to embrace a safe, loved person for you. And as you imagine that feeling, and you hear the melodic prosody of my voice, and you look at this image, notice what happens in your own territory. Notice what happens in your body, in your lived experience. And if you feel any kind of sense of peace or joy or hope, pleasantness, maybe neutral, and maybe it's just a molecule of a feeling, but that's your own ventral vagus circuits running. These are the circuits responsible for health, growth, and restoration. These are your medicine. These circuits, as they live within you, are what make pain get better and go away. And it lives in you. Sometimes it becomes a little atrophied, but that's okay. Nerves are like muscles, and we can work them and hypertrophy them. Through movement, notice what happens as you experience these people in their ventral vagus circuits with activity. They're again smiling, proximity, closeness, joy. I love her face. Look at that happy, gorgeous smile of like, wow, I'm moving. That's great. Okay, and just notice what happens within you. There's no right or wrong or good or bad. But these are people running ventral vagus circuits. They're running the circuits responsible for health, growth, and restoration. We went through this on a deep level. So this is the front part of your vagus nerve. Welcome to your sympathetic circuits. Notice what happens as you experience this little girl. Notice the tension around her mouth, her fixated gaze. So pointy focus. Her neck and shoulders are up and ready. I imagine her fists are clenched inside those gloves, and I can just see her legs filled with arousal energy and ready to run or punch or kick or something. Notice what happens in you as you experience these circuits. I'm feeling my abdominal muscles tighten. I'm feeling my chest and shoulders getting a little more tense and activated and ready to rumble. This is your territory, your lived experience of sympathetic circuits. Look at this pissed off little kid, right? Again, that pointy stare. This is a friend of mine's son from the 70s, mad, wild scientist hair. But again, that kind of tension in the jaw, right? If we live in sympathetic circuits, we can expect high blood pressure and tension in our jaw, TMJ issues, headache, migraine, neck pain, shoulder pain. Not a character flaw, just an expression that's normal and natural of sympathetic circuits, right? We can expect to have high blood pressure in sympathetic circuits. We can expect probably constipation and challenging immunity, difficulty with insulin, weight gain. Welcome to your dorsal vagus circuits. Take a moment to look and feel at this shutdown. There's no eye gaze or connection with another human. Hopeless. Her posture is downward, right? There's no arousal. There's no activation here. It's just overwhelmed and I can't. We're closed. I'm not going to keep you here long, but notice this one here. Notice how closed and small this posture is. And notice what happens in you. Again, I'm feeling a little collapse in my lumbar spine. And I shudder as I see these voices of my own inner critic yelling at me, because that's often the natural byproduct of these dorsal vagus shutdown circuits. And again, we can expect we're not connecting with humans here. Our immune system isn't great. Our blood pressure is low, our heart rate is low. We're not making eye contact. Our face can be really flat affect. So this is the map, and you just did a little journey through the territory, and I don't want to end in dorsal, so I'm bringing in my beloved little beast. This is Marcus Aurelius when he's 8 weeks old, and this is him at 1 year old. And now notice, it may or may not come across to you, but I'm co-regulating with my own beast here in the form of my dog. And he brings me joy and delight. And I will absolutely tell you, over the last year, this pandemic puppy has eased a tremendous amount of my own social pain from isolation. And I love this face of curiosity that he brings. The goal when it comes to the autonomic nervous system and awareness of it is to navigate this map in your territory and just practice awareness of your states. The goal isn't to be green all the time. The goal is to be aware of what state we're in and to just navigate with a little more ease and flow and skill and strengthen the circuits that get us back to the green when we disconnect from it, because that's normal and natural. So let's do the first practical exercise. Again, if you want that 3D map, the autonomic map, just email me, Stefan, if you could put in the chat my email address so that way people can grab that. Let's do the first exercise. It's called slow blinking, and it's just like it sounds. I invite you to become aware of your body right now, your breath. Notice what state it's in. There's no right or wrong or good or bad. 0 is calm and peaceful. 10 is the maximal level of stress and arousal. Just notice where you're at. And now I'm going to invite, as you become aware of your nervous system, to join me in blinking slowly 3 or 4 times. And so I'm just reducing the speed of my blink by about 50%. I'm pausing at the bottom, and then I'm raising my eyelids back up again. Slowly lower your eyelids down to the bottom, pause at the bottom, raise them up. Notice what you notice in and around your mind and or body. For me, I notice I take a deeper breath. I become more aware of my heart as it's pounding in my chest. And I'd love to hear from you what your experience with slow blinking is. We're going to jump on over to clearing the cache, and then we'll finish up with vroom breathing and go into some questions. So clearing the cache. This is a very wordy slide, and I apologize for that, but we'll run through this idea here together. Feel free to take a screenshot of this, or again, you can email me and I'll get you the instructions written down. The first step to clearing the cache. This is a more brain-based exercise for regulating your nervous system, right? Because the psychological, the emotions, the feelings, that affects our nervous system, which affects our physical body. And a lot of times we don't want to talk about, or we don't know how to identify feelings or emotions that we're having. And this exercise is a way to bring up the emotions that could be affecting our physical body that we don't know they are. So the first step is to orient to safety, because talking about emotions can be scary. So take a moment right now to look around your environment And notice that it's objectively, physically safe in the fact that there's probably 4 walls around you, a ceiling above you, and a floor below you. You likely have clothes on your body, which is great if there's other people around that you don't want to see or have you be seen naked. Little humor, right? But noticing these physical cues of safety. Then I invite you to inventory the scary stuff, any fears, worries, or concerns. Give them a voice, right? Name it to tame it. And so the exercise here is to say out loud and or write down, I'm afraid that you all think I'm wacky. I'm afraid that my dog's peeing on my neighbor's furniture right now. I'm afraid that my mouth is dry and I'm not going to be able to finish this talk. I'm afraid that my next talk later today is going to be awful. So name it until there's nothing else there. I'm worried that I'm running behind on time. I'm worried that I'm never going to be able to pick up my kid again. I'm worried that we're not going to have enough money at the end of the month to pay the bills. Whatever it is, just get it all out of your system because it's an exhale. And an exhalation is a way to lower the arousal of your nervous system. I'm concerned that, again, we're running behind on time. I'm concerned that we don't have enough time to practice this exercise. I'm concerned that nobody's going to be able to make this pain go away. Whatever the concerns are, inventory, get it out. Don't think too much about it. Just get it out, get it out, get it out. Write it down. Write it out. Say it out loud. And then shake your body. Step 3. Shake your body, shake your arms, shake your neck, shake your shoulders. Shaking is the fastest way to induce neurogenic tremors and settle and relax your nervous system. Sometimes you just want to shake a little bit, especially if you have more freeze going on. Sometimes you can shake in such a subtle way that nobody would notice. Sometimes you want to do big shakes. So shake your body and then shift your attention to what you experience in the wake of the shake. Oftentimes, it's a sense of relaxed, spacious, buzzy, peace, deeper breath. Okay. Step 4, put your hands on your body somewhere that feels soothing to you. Some people like their hands on their cheeks. Some people like a hand on a cheek and the heart. Some people like a hand on the heart and a hand on the gut. Some people like both hands on their heart. Something that's soothing and safe for your physiology. And then I invite you to do an extended exhale to the end. Pause at the end of the exhale. Let your body take the next inhale. One more time. Extend all the way to the end of your exhale until your breath runs out. No need to force it. Just go until there's no more breath left to exhale, and then pause. Let your body take the next breath in. This will help soothe. And then I invite you to finish this sentence. When it comes to this discomfort, my presence, my essence, my knowing, my heart, whatever language works for you. But when it comes to this discomfort, for me in this moment of running short on time, my heart says, oh, Renee, it'll be all right. You're scheduled to go till 8:30. There's still plenty of time. And then notice how I took a deeper breath. This is an exercise that I do with clients, and we will often get to a place of greater peace together because deep down in their knowing, in their wisdom, I know I'm going to be okay. I can do hard things. I've done them before. Remember the hard things that you did before that you didn't think you could, you got through. So surely you can get through this too. Sometimes we need a lot or a little bit of help to connect with another nervous system that's safe, to help us find our own safe circuitry again. So let's close this talk with some Vroom breathing. So we just did an extended exhale together. Now I invite you to say the word vroom on the exhale and pay attention to your neck your chest, maybe even your abdominal muscles. As you phonate or sound the vroom, it can have a vibration effect that's very stimulating to the vagus nerve. So let's do 3 together and invite everybody to go on mute if you don't mind, so that way we can do it in our own space of vroom activity. Breathe in. Vroom. Just notice your nervous system. Notice your mind, notice your body. There's no right or wrong or good or bad. That's an activity that can help deactivate the nervous system. Engage more of those ventral vagal circuits. Timing here was interesting because I just had a huge gust of wind and something knocked over and there's cold air getting rushed into my house. So it's like, Renee, pay attention to your body. All these distracting things outside and inside our own mind and body. And yet it's an opportunity to work on really practicing focus, deep focus on these circuits within us that can heal. And sometimes we need help. And sometimes we don't notice a thing at the start. It's just like going to the gym. I start going to the gym and I do bicep curls. I'm not going to expect bigger biceps after 1 or 2 sets and reps. It takes 3 weeks, 21 days, 7 minutes a day to build a new neural pathway, a light strength pathway. It takes another 21 days, 7 minutes a day of focused attention on these exercises and practices to build a medium pathway. It takes a 3rd set of 21 days, 7 minutes a day. That's a total of 63 days to build a strong new neural pathway for you. Back to your own green. It is available for you. And here's some more proof. This was a client of mine with very struggling, persistent, disabling back pain and bilateral knee pain. And when his pain would get bad, he'd get flushed red all across his abdomen and chest, and his back pain would go through the roof. He laid down for 5 minutes, did a vagus nerve reset exercise along with some Vroom breathing that you just did. 5 minutes later, his stomach skin returned to normal. It's very exciting. It's very promising. There is capacity within us all to heal. And this picture shows us proof that if he can do it, we can do it too. We, on average, as humans, have 50 to 100 stress responses a day, not during a pandemic. Okay, this is pre-pandemic research. So we need at least 50 to 100 relaxation responses a day to counter that. It's a lot of reps. It takes time. It is effort, and it is worth doing. And I'm here to help. So here is a website that you can go to subscribe to my newsletter. I send it out sometimes monthly. And I have a YouTube channel with a whole bunch of free videos that you can watch and learn from, and it has a link to my website there if you want to read any more about it. We can also put my website in the chat. Oh, I love this image with the light coming through the green trees. What got me through at the end of the day with my childhood trauma was believing in this light that exists outside of me and within me. And it was a light that provided me somehow with a hope to get through darkness and to find moments every day of peace, joy, purpose, meaning, and love again. And I finish my talk with an offer to you again, to connect to the light within me, within your nervous system, within the rays of sunshine, within the people that you love, the creatures that you love, memories that you have. And may they return back to you in your nervous system again in ways that are meaningful to you. So I would love to connect now. It's 8:09. Thank you for letting me go past time. It's so lovely to see some names here. Hi, Riley. Hi, Matthew Court. iPad, Nancy, Pat Chike, Susan House, iPhone, DA, Stefan, Harriet. Nancy, what came up for you in this talk today? What did you want to ask me about or share? And I would also love to hear what helped you get through a hard time, a hard thing in your past. Harriet, how did we do today?
I feel like I gained more confidence, that I have the capacity to learn more about regulating my autonomic nervous system. And there are activities that will help increase that. And I just need to do more of it. And I guess I feel like for most of my life, I've been a prisoner of my autonomic nervous system. And I realize now, pretty late in life, actually, that there's more I can do to regulate that and be friendlier with it, to tame the beast, so to speak. Because for short periods of time, I can do that. I just want to lengthen those times. So it's been very helpful. I want to thank you very much.
I'm noticing I feel a tremendous amount of relief and peace and gratitude for you being here today.
Yes. And the power of gratitude is powerful. Gratitude is very powerful. Yeah. And the meditation, all the activities, movement is a big deal. Very, very big deal. I mean, I feel better when I'm moving than any other time.
Yeah.
If I could just move 24 hours a day, I'd be great.
Sleep be gone, right?
Should have been a dancer.
Movement is medicine and motion is lotion.
Yes, very much. Thank you, Renee.
You're very welcome, Harriet. Thank you. Glad to hear your experience. And would love to hear from anybody else that's here. Some names and faces. Good to see your face, Riley. Thanks for opening up your screen. Hello. Hi, Evan. Good to see you. Ah!
That was really funny.
The silly walk across the gym, the silly roll across the stool. Lovely to see. And a new face over at Colorado Spine. Good to see you there. I'm Renee.
Nice to meet you.
It's Dennis, our new client. No. Renee, unless anyone else would like to share something or has another question for Renee. Just for those two that logged in, this is recorded and we will send out an email with this recording. Feel free to share it with anyone. I'm sure Renee agrees with this, that we believe, the team here and many other healthcare providers, that this type of information is very important in normal times and in times of COVID and so on. Just look around you. So please share this recording with anyone. It will help us all, definitely. Thank you so much, Renee, and I, on behalf of the team, thank you for the work you do. It's the key to getting through these challenging times for many of us. Thank you.
Yes.
Stefan, the feeling is very mutual, right back to you and Ellen and Evan and Dennis and everybody that came here today. Riley, Matthew, Harriet, Susan, Ann, all of us. We all matter, and every little drop in the bucket lifts and elevates the consciousness, and a rising tide lifts all ships. So everything that we all do matters, and I appreciate all of you for being here today.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else? If not, then I'm going to end this this meeting. Again, thank you, Renee, and see you soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
Good
Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, bye, Anne. Good to see you.
Bye.